Okay, so I've searched for the elements, the criteria. I have 5 different ones. And now I'm ready to sketch, but I need to be able to look at my references pretty clearly. So I give myself some space on the computer here so I can sketch. And I know I need a horizontal sketch. So I'm going to draw within my sketchbook. Pretend this is my sketchbook and this is the spine. It's a spiral sketchbook. So I'll draw a horizontal thumbnail and then a vertical. Don't need to be large, but they should have empty space around them so I could grow them, recrop them as I need. Okay, they're going to meet these criteria. And then the first things I want to place in are my Icy Mountains morning. So this is how I do it. Just to reference some of the image files I found, I just open up the folder and then I click on the little gear and say show view options, and I'll just leave this open. And I want to make the icon size pretty big, the grid spacing really small, and try to sort them all by name. Try to fit them all on the screen in a way I can see while I'm sketching. Okay, so now I have some different interesting items, right? And I think I had one. Where's that other one I had? Oh, here it is. Yeah. So certain ones have foreground and background. You can see that foreground there, background there. Those can be helpful. Some of them are only foreground elements. Some of them are only background elements. This one has 3 layers of depth. So I always like to see that. It has foreground, middle ground, and background. So that might help in like the corner of a composition. So I need to move Photoshop over to here. So I'm going to steal that one in this corner, the frozen lake and the trees and stuff. You don't need to draw very well. You just need to indicate it. So now I'll call this number 1 something, and then I'll usually give it a color. And then I'll indicate this as number 1. That's my first reference. Now it's a big puzzle piece that I want to layer other things into, like a foreground element like this big rock. So I'll call that 2. Give it a color. And I'll use that in the foreground maybe here. It's kind of a focal point, help cover some stuff up. It's got these other rocks around it. Label that number 2. Now for the background, this one looks good. See, I'm doing most of my work just in these big pictures, layering some stuff up. So 3, this is my background. And it's going to go into this corner here. Those clouds, mountains. That's 3. And then I kind of want to use this weird thing. But I'm not sure I'll be able to yet, so I might go back to it. Okay, then I can close that folder. Now move to my next, the Starry Sky. Make the icons big, close their space, organize them by name, put them on the screen. These are just Starry Sky, so obviously that's going to all be up here. But now I can think of my vertical format too. So that's element number 4. And of these, I think this one's quite nice because it has some of that atmospheric cloud in there. So I'll label that number 4 and give it a color. But I have backups. But now I also might want to think about my vertical format. And for that one, I've got this crazy one here. So I'm going to call it V for vertical 1. That's what I'll build my vertical format around. I've got this really beautiful public domain Starry Sky from NASA that I'll build on top of. I'll give that a different color. They're my verticals. Ice forest. See, it's easier when you don't have so many to choose from. So I limited it a little bit. It'd be great to use those icicles somewhere. But I don't see being able to use that in the horizontal one, so maybe I could use it in the vertical. So this would be a framing device. V2. Mark it red. And those will obviously, well, actually, maybe they'll come from the bottom. Oh, yeah. Maybe I can use them in both. Hey. So I can have these shards, these icicle shards coming up from the bottom. So that will be my fifth element over here. So it's V2 and H5. And then it will be both colors. That's going to make it pretty unique. And then for this one, I'll have them hanging from the top. You know, kind of framing the image. So we're going to see the stars through these icicles. So that's 2. And then I love these black rocks and that little ice crystal there and these shards. So I'm hoping to use that one right here as a 6th element. But I'm going above and beyond already. But if I'm excited about it, that's okay. And of course, you need to cover up that empty space. So I'm just missing something in this corner. And this might really work well here as well, that ice as a focal point. I'll just put 6 there, do the same one. And then I might be able to use these trees, these frozen trees, this frozen forest in the corner here. I don't want the road. That could be element 7. So you create your own vision of the landscape through the reference you collect. Now these other ones are pretty easy. The lunar eclipse, obviously, it's going to be in the sky, so that will be 8. Lunar eclipse here will be in the sky, that will be 8. And you can label these as well, if you want. And then my crazy ice seeds, the one I'm most excited about using are these shells. And that will be a nice kind of texture element that can work in both. So I'm going to call it let's see, the X factor. I want to use that X filter. I'll make it a little bit bolder in the background there. And this is that kind of weird element I'm throwing in. Which helps it be more of a challenge. Now that doesn't mean I'm only limiting myself to those references, but it means I've sketched with those in mind, I'll build with those in mind, and then I'll use my other references to add on, or I might have to do other searches to like figure out what else is needed. But they each have at least 5 things going on. One is a solution that's horizontal, one is a solution that's vertical. That's the step we need by next class. Then we need to be very organized. So I'm going to create a new folder, which is for assignment 1, fantasy landscape. And then all my reference folders go in that. As well, if I'm doing a digital sketch, I want to put that in there too. Because you are going to upload your sketches. So in the vertical one, I'm using a lot of the same elements, but there's going to be a lot more sky showing in my vertical one. And my icicles are going to come from the top. yeah, you'll just make very different decisions fitting it within a vertical frame versus a horizontal frame. And you always want your reference to go beyond what your frame is too. You don't want the corner of one of your reference images to become the corner of your composition, because that kind of limits your ability to create within that. All right. So I'm going to move my sketch into that folder as well. And then I'm ready for what we're going to do at the beginning of next class, which is to work on top of our sketch and start bringing our reference in. So I'll come around and help you guys out.